You're good. See, I have to find a frame that makes me look skinny. You don't have to worry about that.
I
Okay.
don't know about that.
Yeah, you no, you don't have to worry about. But on that note, how is your health? How are you?
Great.
Yeah.
I was actually in LA for a medical procedure, and it went well, and it was either going to be something really big or something kind of minor. It was the minor one, so that's great news.
Okay. Okay. Yeah,
Good
because
news.
I worry about that sometimes.
Thank you. I appreciate
Because
it.
the martial art world at large and the Jeet Kune world specifically will be somewhat lost if you're not around.
No, I don't know
to,
about that.
to keep us on the straight and narrow.
Do your sparring.
Right, right. Okay, all right. So, hello everyone. This is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, and this is the Jeet Kune Dialogues episode number 330 with a most familiar face, I would say, as my guest, and everybody knows him as a consummate martial artist. But I want to start talking to him today about being a consummate travel packing minimalist.
Let's do it.
What is this thing, Burton Richardson? You were out of the country for 2 weeks or something, or longer than that, and
No,
everybody had, how long was it?
you, you know, 2 weeks, that's a long time to go minimalist. We were just out of the country for 6.5 weeks. So,
Yeah, and everybody took a single backpack.
right. I had one, regular sized backpack, not stuffed like this, just a regular. And Sarah had one, and Talina had one. And then I think Sarah had a little bag too for food. And that's it. That's all we use.
Okay.
So, okay, I'll tell you, because we went from years and years ago of having all the luggage and all this sort of stuff, and then we're
Right?
going down and down.
Yep.
What helped was we were on an airline some years ago, maybe 5 years ago, 4 years ago, that had very, very strict um, weight for
Yep.
carry-on.
Yeah.
And so that helped with, like, hey, we can actually do our carry-on much better than we've been doing. And so it progressed to this thing. I did a bunch of research on packing lightly, watch a lot of videos. I think one of the best advice I had was, person says, uh, all those things you pack just in case, like in
Mhm.
case you need it, let's go ahead and put it. Well, don't take that. Because if you look back at your travel history, you're going to find that you never use those things. And
Right.
if somehow you actually did, you're probably in a place that you can go to a store and get whatever it is. So that of saying, ooh, I'm going to have this just in case. I'm going to bring this just in case. That ends up being half of your luggage. So the
Right.
key thing is we pack light. We pack clothing that is light itself. And if we have to, if we're going to some place that's going to be cold, then we'll actually wear or take the coat on with us, so on
Mhm.
the plane. But what happens is, by packing really lightly, and all you have to do is have laundry service. Like, for example, we went to Bangkok for a couple days, then we went to Cambodia for a little over a week, and then we washed our clothes in Cambodia. Well, we didn't wash them. There are these, all these little places you go in. And it
Yeah.
turns out, I think it cost for all of us to have our clothes washed and dried and folded and packaged to give back to you. It was like $4,
Yeah.
in a place like that. So it's like, wow,
Yeah.
wish we had that here. We'd do that here too.
Yeah.
So yeah, key thing is just take the necessities that you're going to use for sure,
Right.
and just fewer articles of clothing than you think you need, because you're going to wash.
Right.
I count them out and I say, please, for 7 days like this, and then you wash and you just start the whole thing again. But here's the great benefit. First of all, you're not like, I remember, uh, yeah, several years ago, we went to Venice. We're in Italy to visit Augusto Baracco, my great friend and JKD Unlimited full instructor there. But we went to Venice first. And it's cold, it's drizzling, and we have rolling carry on. And I think we had an actual suitcase. And you get there, and if you've been to Venice, all these little, these bridges. And so you're on cobblestone, lots of stairs, going over a
Mhm.
bridge, going down the bridge, or upstairs and downstairs and upstairs. And it took us 20 some minutes of hauling this stuff to get to our apartment.
Yeah,
With the backpack, you just put it on and it's light and you go and you're good.
yeah.
Highly recommended.
Well, as I was thinking about that, right? I mean, you experienced the luggage thing even before Sarah and you and Talina within Asano, probably.
Oh, absolutely. We'd go. Oh, yeah. And when Guru Dan would pack, I'd go assist him on a seminar someplace.
Yeah,
Uh, Yeah, he had a lot of stuff because, you know, he's just so generous. Because he could easily say, I don't need to bring all these things, but he wants everybody on those seminars to have all the stuff. He used to bring so many weapons, and that kind of changed, I think, 9/11. I don't know how many he brings now, but we have all
mhm,
these training swords and, of course, the sticks and the training knives and all this, plus all of the uh, his material that he would look at,
right.
the charts and this and
Yep,
that. Oh,
yep.
yeah, there was a lot of luggage involved.
So I dare say then that your approach to packing is simple, direct, and non-classical.
I would say that exactly. And, maybe we should write those three down because that might be able to apply to something else in life. I'm just thinking, it
Yeah,
might have a broader scope than just
it,
packing.
it's possible. I mean, it's possible that that could be kind of like a mini philosophy.
Hmm.
For how you approach things.
I wonder if you could do that in martial arts.
I don't
But
know.
no, simple,
Well,
that's not a thing.
I don't know, man. We might be onto something there.
Okay, we'll flesh that out a little bit
Okay,
later.
yeah,
See
yeah,
if we can.
we can talk about that later. But let's talk about. I counted them. I think there are on JKDunlimited.com. There are at least 8 for the street programs right now.
Ah,
Okay,
hmm.
Brooks Long, my good online friend, asked what happened to Junfon for the streets. But I think yeah, aren't
Chun
there
Fong Street.
Jun Font for the streets? That's what he
Huh.
asked. But
I don't
there's a
know.
couple JKD for the street programs, aren't there?
Well, I have
Or
a
is
JKD.
he right? Is he right?
He is correct.
So
Brooks
there
Long
is
is
supposed to
correct.
be there is supposed to be one.
Yes, and it's coming. So, this is one of these things. When I put out programs, what I do is when I'm comfortable with it, with the whole curriculum,
Yeah.
then I act like I never had the curriculum and I start again and I reteach and I retest and try to think of it like clear the table and think of it again
Hmm.
as though, so I'm not bound to the curriculum that I've been using. And
Yeah.
sometimes, or a lot of times, what happens is things come up and I'm like, oh, and you know what it does? It makes it more simple, it makes it more direct, and it's actually not classical. So I don't know. Again, maybe we should write that down. Uh,
Yeah.
so I redo everything, and I've never I've never done a program where I've waited and waited and waited and finally put it out. And at this point, I've never done that and said, I should have just done that earlier. I should have just put it out 2 years ago. But I like to wait until I really feel comfortable. So with the Junfon JKD for the street or the Junfon JKD program,
Mhm.
because I'm wondering, should I call it for the street? Because everybody's like, well, what do you, it is for the street. It's not for
Yes.
competition, right?
Right.
So
Right.
but then if I say for the street, then there are be a whole bunch of people talking about it, which might be better. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But the but the point is, I went through all these surgeries and all this stuff and being sick and all that, and I wanted to, especially demonstrating the kicking and the movement.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to do it and not do it really as well as I think I can.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to build up my body actually, because I've had the curriculum and I'm very happy with it for several years now. We had people go through the program and become instructors. Uh, And so I'm very happy to say that right now I'm in a place where I'm getting much stronger, and everything's working much better, the legs
Yes.
and everything. So
Good.
this year I'm going to do it toward
Okay.
the end of the summer or after the summer. I'm going to say before, um, yeah, before the holidays, the winter holidays, I will have that out.
Okay. All right. So, most times when I do these dialogues, I try to come up with a question that somebody may never have asked before. Right. So I'm going to get this one because I know we're somewhat on a tight schedule for you because you got stuff to do. Right. So I'm going
Yes,
to
I have
throw
some.
this at you now.
Okay.
What if Talina had not taken to martial arts?
Well, there are adoptions available. You know, that I tell you, yeah, I'm so for, our family, we're joking all the time. Um, we are, I'm so fortunate that she enjoys it.
Yeah.
She really particularly enjoys the, enjoys jujitsu.
Yeah.
When it comes to stick and knife, she is really loath to do any of the drills, like actual drilling, but sparring, she will do that all day long. She loves it. And it's just Sarah's personality, because Sarah, I, she always says, like, with whatever the martial art, she doesn't know all the names of the techniques and this and
Right.
that. She can understand it. She can explain it well and get someone else to be functional in it. But it's not the classical approach where here's this technique and this is the name for it and this is the history of it and all. Both of them are very interested in the performance of it and playing the game. That's where they find the most fun, is actually
Mhm.
playing that game and getting the feedback in real time. So, but to answer your question, I don't know. Our thing was always, I'm I'm gonna try to make martial arts as fun as possible for her. So it's just play
Right.
and having a great time. So hopefully she'll like it for a long time. And instead of forcing her to do it and doing things she doesn't really want to do, and then at a certain time she's like, okay, good, now I don't have to do that anymore. So that's what we've done. We just had made it play,
Hmm.
and so far, man, she's pretty formidable.
Yeah. All right. So as you were saying that, I thought of two things. Like, so they're performance oriented. I wonder if that has anything to do with their being associated with somebody who used to have the word performance in the name of his business,
Like that guy with high performance martial arts,
or
that one?
something like, yeah, or
Something like
something like that. Yeah.
that.
Right.
Yeah. I think Sarah, uh, she has the mindset of, her mindset is, why would you do anything if it doesn't really work?
Hmm.
And, now we know, as Grudin points out, for example, running through tires for football players. Football players running through tires, you don't run through tires in a football game, but the attributes you build go directly to that. Running with high legs, so it's harder to get tackled. Driving through, there are attributes that are developed that translate directly to playing better football.
Right.
But she is interested in playing the game and making sure it works, because I think she had a oh my gosh, her upbringing was rough. Oh my gosh, from the family perspective and all these, I mean, there were just a lot of really, really tough things that happened to her, and she didn't have a place to live for a while as a teenager, and just, I mean, tough. And
Hmm.
so she needs to defend herself, and
Right.
that's her primary interest. And that's, for me, I love all the martial art and all, but my primary interest is functional self-defense
Yeah.
with no rules against someone bigger, stronger, faster, younger, very, very violent. And that's first, and then to me, then we spread out to everything else.
Yeah.
uh, but yeah, I'm fortunate that they have that mindset too.
If this is not too personal, um,
No, go ahead.
so then that um, recent visit back home for her to reunion,
Yes.
right? That must have been interesting then.
Oh yes, because we hadn't been for 7 years,
Right.
and yeah, we go back, and especially because now Talina is old enough that she really understands. So she was there when last time she was 7 years old. So now when she went, she was 14. She's 15 now, but uh, a whole different perspective. And so it was
Hmm.
interesting, yeah, for Sarah because she did have a different feel about the
Yeah.
whole place. She was very happy seeing her family, of course, and her friends, and the island itself is very special. And doing those things, the food, amazing, amazing food. But there are a lot of aspects of it that she was actually at this point in her life was able to kind of leave behind, and it didn't, it wasn't, traumatic,
Traumatic, right? Yeah.
basically. So yeah, it was
Excellent.
really made it a good trip.
Excellent. Yeah. Now, I remember there was a time where when you would come back to the mainland, you would have to plan and schedule and group everything together, right? So that you'd be here, and you'd hit this city and this state and whatever and whatever. Do you still have to do that stuff even if you go to Asia?
Well, you know what's happened because in 2015 when I had the big surgery. So if anybody doesn't know, I had, well, they thought it was ulcerative colitis, and that started when I was in college. So back in college, what was that, 15 years ago, 14 years ago, right, Dwight? About,
Uh,
about,
no,
you
that
know,
was 20 years ago.
20 years ago. Maybe it was 40 years ago.
Maybe it was.
Might have been 40 years ago. But
Yeah, it was like 20 years ago, man.
yeah, okay, yes, 20. Let's go with 20.
Right?
So
Yeah.
yeah, and then it culminated finally. I really modified diet and this and that, and culminated in having the my entire large intestine removed and all this stuff. Da, 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 right, and so basically, I was a lot weaker, and I after that surgery for 7 years straight, I was on antibiotics. Like every single day, I took antibiotics for 7 years plus other things. And so, anyway, the point being that I just didn't feel great making those tours. And then when I did, I'd say, okay, I'm going to do it, and I'll just suck it up and
Yeah.
go do it. Now, just in the last about year or so, I'm actually feeling after other surgeries, I'm feeling good. Like I feel like, wow, I'm feeling good. So I'm ready to go do those. But what happened, when I lived in LA, I followed Grudan's model. And so we would go leave Friday, go someplace, get there Friday evening, teach Saturday, Sunday. And then I would usually stay a couple more days so we could actually see the place and such. I'm going to tell you a story. This is, you know, Grudan is just so dedicated to his teaching. So, of course, do you know that Grudan has the most miles ever in the history of American Airlines?
Well,
Like,
okay, but now I heard that he lost. Somebody told me that because of COVID and he stopped traveling, that he lost his privileges on American, which I
oh,
find,
come on.
yeah, right.
Come
Because
on.
last time I saw him in Florida, which was a number of years ago, he was at 6 million miles. You don't give that. You don't lose that,
No, no, you do not lose. You're the number
right?
one flyer, then COVID hits. And no, you do not lose that, right?
Okay,
So hopefully he's still the same. But his thing was he would leave Friday and come back Monday morning. And sometimes he would leave Sunday night.
yeah,
Because why? Because he felt obligated,
to
he felt the
teach.
duty to teach his class on Monday at the
Yes,
academy. So
yes,
that's what he did.
ridiculous. He
Yeah, I
he
mean,
went
just
he went to Germany for a weekend once.
oh, actually, you know what? He's done that a lot of times. He'd fly out again Thursday night.
Yeah,
So he would get to Europe Friday afternoon or something, or Friday evening. By the time you get to the airport and you
yeah,
drive and all that, he'd teach Saturday, Sunday, and boom, and he comes back. I mean, just incredible. I
yeah.
remember one time at the IMB Academy, he had a 10 a.m. class on Mondays and Wednesdays. And he comes driving up at like 9:58, getting out, and he's still in the clothes he had on the plane from Europe. He had
Hmm.
flown overnight,
Hmm.
gotten home, and just that's Gurudan.
Yeah,
So he was here one time. This is 10 years ago or so. I was hosting here for a seminar, and Sarah asked him, said, if you retire one day, I mean, what are you gonna do if you retire? And he goes, I'd really like to travel. Because he's never seen any place. He's
Right.
seen the airports,
Yep.
but he's gone to all these places, but he's never experienced them because he he is so dedicated and feels the duty to come back and teach his classes to his students that are there for him that
Yeah.
he sacrifices himself and not see the place. I'm
Yeah.
like, this guy has the most miles like probably ever any flyer, and he wants to travel so he can see places. So I use that, and I decided I was going to stay after in places. So in LA, I would go out every single weekend. When Sarah moved from Reunion and we got married, that first 9 months or so, yeah, we did probably 30 seminars in 9 months. So we're going out and back and out and back. We're jet lagged constantly.
Mhm.
But then we moved to Hawaii. I realized that extra 6 hours to get to the mainland and then continue traveling, that was just going to make that too difficult, not to mention
Right.
expensive.
Yeah.
So I decided to do tours where I'd get four, 3, 4, 5, 6 hosts together, and we
Hmm.
would fly, go to the first place, do the seminar, and then take a few days there, go to the next place, take a few days to feel it, do the seminar, etc., and go around. And that
Yeah.
way also, instead of a host having to pay Honolulu to say, New York or wherever it is, all the hosts pitch in, and it makes the travel much, much cheaper for everybody too. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, we started doing that, but I used to take that big giant duffel bag full of stuff, but not anymore.
I hear. Well, I still do. I mean, and when Ron and I go out to LA, we
Yes.
train in the Cabri Cabron class. So you got
Oh,
we got
right.
to take the Cabri Cabron swords, and it's really hard to find a weapons bag that can fit
Uh,
that stuff.
that is true.
You
They're
know,
long.
yeah, right. I mean, I have Kali stick bags that are older than some of my students.
Yeah, I believe
Right?
you.
You know?
Yeah, those were great bags. Weren't they made
Awesome.
well?
Oh my gosh, they can still withstand. And these bags are from the 1980s.
Yeah,
You
right.
know, right?
I think
Um,
Jeff Imada, Seafood Jeff Imada, make the first bag, and then
yeah,
who was
yep.
making bags after that? I forget his
Then
name now.
there
But
it was called Kabayashi or something,
mm,
and I I know the name of the guy was. I know that it wasn't Chris Marcus, was it?
Chris Marcus made some bags. He
Right?
did. Maybe it was his
It might, yeah,
because
it
yeah,
might
he
have been him.
definitely made bags.
Yeah. Okay, we're
Great
not doing
bags.
so bad that we have that kind of memory, man. We're not
Right?
so bad,
Hey,
right?
we're standing right in there. We're trying to follow in Gurdan's footsteps. Gosh, when
Okay.
I was there 2 weeks ago at the academy
Yeah.
training with him, he stopped and he told a little story about me in the middle of class to my embarrassment. And, he's bringing stuff up that was from maybe 1988, and just telling it. And I remember it very well. And he's just telling boop, 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 boop. I'm like, wow, he just remembers everything. It's
Yeah.
amazing,
Yeah.
his acuity.
He really is. So I thought of asking you this also. It was something that Cass and I was at Cass's one of Cass's seminars, and he
Yes,
was
I saw
talking,
that.
right, and
And you've been hosting Cass and Seafood Chris Kent too, right?
yes, yeah,
That's
they
awesome.
that
Go
Titans.
to that, folks. If he does another one, if he can do the JKD Titans again, go to it. You will learn so much. So
Well, see, so this is the thing, right? This is what I've been telling people. If you've been with Inosano for 10 years, you've been with him since he was 80 years old. If you've been with him
mm,
for 20 years, you've been with him since he was 70 years old. If you've been
mm,
with him for right? So,
that's a very good point.
right now, if you were with Inosano in the 80s or maybe even the mid 70s,
Hmm.
you got to experience what I would call prime Inasano. Now, any Inasano is better than a
Yes,
lot of stuff that's out there. Any
absolutely.
age Inasano. But
Absolutely. Right now, go train with Grudan, and it's
right,
just amazing. Can I
my
just mention one thing
yeah,
before you go on?
go go
When I
go.
was there, I learned so much. Every single time I learned,
Right?
it's like, oh, right, yes, oh, yes, yes. So,
Yeah, yeah. Right. So my what I try to encourage people to do is to seek out those who are still around and actively teaching
mm,
who did experience prime Inasano.
mm,
So that's you, Chris, Cass,
hmm.
right? Guys like that.
No,
I think
that's a very good point.
right now it's difficult to beat a path to your doorstep physically, but
Yes.
there's a thing called streaming,
What? Thank
right?
goodness.
Yeah,
This makes it
you
so much easier.
yeah, you should research it and see if you could get involved with it.
Okay, I'll see what
Okay.
that's all about.
Right? Okay, so this is the thing that Cass and I and he would bring it up at his seminars and what have you. So I'm going to throw it out to you. Most important thing that you learned from Inasano. Now, I should have prepared you for this,
No, no,
right?
you don't have to.
Okay, right?
Yeah.
What would you say? Most important thing that you learned from Inasano?
I would say I'm obviously there are a billion things, right? I would say number one that comes to mind that I think is most important is when he said that one night in class he's up on the whiteboard talk, and he says JKD, it's research and development, it's R&D.
Mm-hmm.
You research and find better ways, and then you develop that better way so that you and everybody else is better off, is more efficient in fighting.
Mm-hmm.
R&D, that's what's guided my journey, is
Yeah.
how. And of course, in order to do that, you have to test it. You a big company, a tech company, or whatever it is, whatever. It might be a toy company, but they will do R&D, but then they put the product out and see if it actually works.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, R&D, research, develop, and then the testing, and then go back and you research and develop. You do the testing and continue. So I
Yeah.
would say, if number one, besides his example of doing that too, he leads by example. But
Yeah.
that would be my number one thing off the top of my head.
Okay. So what is there? And again, if this is a secret, then don't say anything. But is there a formula for FTS? In other words, okay, I'm going to develop such and such program, CLOT for the street, right? Is Are there guiding principles for what goes into such a program? What is it that you look for and then develop and then put out there? Is there a formula for that?
There is a sort of formula. I will not say, no, I'm just kidding. I'm good. I tell you everybody anything, as I want everybody to hope it makes their path easier. So here is the big thing that I think was the big paradigm change. So what I did first was I did Battlefield Collie, which is basically, it's all sparring based. Everything, the Battlefield Collie, the For the Street, and by the way, I'm actually, man, you said FTS, because I'm coming out with that later this year. We're gonna sort of brand that so it's more clear.
Yeah.
FTS, because it's Functional Training Systems for the Street. So FTS, FTS, right? And here's Dwight's like FTS. He's the head of the whole thing. but but that's the
That's
main thing, the
cool.
functional training systems. And
Right.
so what do you do? Like when I was doing the Battlefield Collie first, I'm looking at the different techniques I want at each level, da 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 da, and then the sparring games and da da da. Well, what I realized over time is the way to do it that's so much easier, with like I kind of did with Battlefield Collie without really thinking about it. It worked out this way, but here it is. I start with the sparring games. So what are how do we isolate different sparring games or resistance? So it doesn't have to be sparring where you're both there and you're squared off, ready, go. It can also be something where it's a sort of a scenario, an ambush, and you suddenly go in, but your partner doesn't throw a punch and stand there and let you do everything. They're giving resistance back the whole time, because we're trying to overcome resistance, as Bruce Lee noted so many times, dealing with an uncooperative opponent or partner. You work with an uncooperative partner so that because an actual attacker is going to be 100% uncooperative. So it's dealing with that flow. You know, it's like, say, basketball. You could go, or let's say tennis. I think tennis is an easy example. You can learn the stroke, you can learn how to hit the ball. That doesn't mean that you can play tennis at all. That means, you know, you get against somebody good and they're just going to just blow that ball right past you and hit it where you aren't and such. So we need to actually spend the time playing the game so we become good at the game. So I start with, you know, there's full sparring where everything is allowed, and then we isolate, which I learned from Guru Dan, of course.
Right.
I think
Right.
everybody knows that.
Yep.
With, say, knife sparring, he'd have us do only, hand and leg only, hand in head, would do full sparring, then right versus left, point up versus point down, right point up versus left point down, etc. And that's how I learned that isolation idea. And so I will take it and I will isolate all the games,
Hmm.
and we have that. Then the whole idea is, what techniques do you need to be proficient in this first game? For example, John Fon JKD, first sparring game is straight lead only. Okay. And straight lead against unmatched lead. So your right lead, the other person's left lead, they get to throw the jab only. You get to use your lead jab, but mainly looking for that straight lead, which is different than the jab. And so you play that game to get very comfortable with it. And so if we're just playing that game, well, what only the lead hand? Only straight punch, no hooks. What techniques do you need? You need to be able to slip back. You need to be able to slip out. You need to be able to do the curve step and actually perform the technique correctly. You need to know how to pat down and then do the straight lead out of there. And there's several techniques that work consistently out of sparring. Then we say,
Right.
okay, instead of just the straight lead, let's do that same game, but you can do whatever you want with your lead hand. So now you can throw a straight lead, you can throw a hook, you can throw a back fist. So now I pat down and I throw the back fist right from there. I scoop it and I throw a hook off of that. And little by little, you build it up. And that's where the techniques. So instead of starting with technique, which I think is a normal thing to do, okay, here's a technique, and what are all these techniques? We'll start with the games and then teach the techniques that will make you most proficient and efficient in those games. And then you
Hmm.
build that up. And by the time you get to the end, you have this entire um, you have the whole thing, all these different techniques that you have honed each one.
Right.
So each one is very, very efficient, which is the whole lot of our friends that are just do quote original JKD. You know, that's they say a lot. It's like, oh, you know, you have to hone the technique. You have to focus on the technique and get really good at the technique. Well, they are correct. But there is more than Jun Fan JKD, right? There are
Correct.
things, for example, Bruce Lee had the whole, he called touch and go, throw a jab up or throw a jab and then come in like single leg tackle, double leg tackle. Um, I know you have to really advisable to do that with MMA guys, like good MMA guys. See if you can actually pull that off because you're going to find like, oh, I get the single leg and now they're uppercutting me. They're hopping on one leg and throwing the uppercut, and you have to learn how to deal with it. So, but I'd say the secret is you start with the games
Right.
and then you go back to techniques and then you do supplementary like power generation on the mitts, and you can work particular drills, the mirror drill to get the distance and things, and you see where all of those techniques fit in, but you start with the games.
So that's essentially beginning with the end in mind, isn't it?
Very good point, very well
Right.
said. Yes, it's yeah, the seven habits, right? Start with the
Right.
end in mind.
Yeah.
um I mean, what do you do if you, well, I'll tell you interesting. Actually, my representative in Portugal, Luis Barneto, who started, he had a traditional martial arts background, started with me, and I'm happy to say he is now, quote, the Joe Rogan of Portugal, because he does all the commentary on the UFCs.
Right.
He's one of the head guys in the MMA movement there, one of the top coaches and all. So
Yeah.
he sent me uh, a paper one time, and I believe it was, I think it was soccer. Okay, let's just, I'm pretty sure it might have been rugby, but the point
Hmm.
was the same, is this top coach had gone to Australia, I believe, and some other places where they're uh, have these children development leagues where they're doing everything they can to optimize the development of the skills of these kids, so as they get older they're going to be world beaters, right? And they had a very high dropout rate. And you know what he discovered the problem was? You know what it was? Is they were making them drill so much they weren't getting to play the game, and the kids were there
No,
to
the
play the game.
games. Right.
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 They were there to have fun and play the game and see if they could win. What do you do if you're going to have a kid and start basketball? You know, you don't go and make them just dribble up and down the court forever and, do the cones and stuff. You go play, you play around, you shoot the ball. And I find when we do our sparring, which is safe sparring and should be enjoyable because we're not going
Right.
all out, because that's fighting, not sparring.
Okay.
You know,
Hang on a second there.
yes.
What type of sparring do you think Bruce Lee did?
Okay, I know what he did according to Grudem.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I wasn't there.
Okay.
uh, but so what Bruce Lee did is, once Guru Dan gave him those helmets, those Navy boxing helmets that Guru Dan found at a Army surplus store, he bought 6 of them and gave 2 to Sigong Bruce. So then they had the gloves, because Bruce Lee had written about it would be great to have the equipment like fencing has equipment, like boxing. But so he had something where you could hit somebody, and because it had the bar, and you wouldn't get lacerations. And I don't know, I find it interesting. The reason the Navy boxing helmets, it was like a boxing headgear, had a bar, and had this bar that came out and protected the nose and the facial features, was because it was for pilots, and they couldn't be getting eye damage. You could not risk damaging their eyesight, because then all their
Right.
pilot training is gone, because they
Yeah.
can't fly anymore. So once they got that, they started sparring, and according to Bruce Lee's notes and what Guru Dan said, is they sparred really hard. Guru Dan got knocked out many times by Bruce Lee
Yeah.
doing the sparring. But then Guru Dan said one day, and he doesn't know why or what caused this to happen. He goes into spar, and Bruce Lee said, "Oh yeah, we're not using the helmets. They used boxing gloves, and it was just surface contact." So he went from hitting really hard and doing all that just to fast and just surface contact without the helmet. So he progressed to a much safer type of sparring as well.
Why do
Um,
you think that was?
I I
I know
I
you
can
don't. You might
speculate.
not know. Right. Yeah. Speculate
Yes,
for us.
I will speculate
Inquiring
because
minds want to know.
I will speculate that people are getting hurt, because once you get to that level, one thing with that boxing thing, since it had here, if you throw a hook, it's like taking a lever attached to someone's head and just ripping it, and so much torque and all. But
Yeah.
I know from experience, for example, one time I introduced a helmet with a cage that I love. With I don't make anymore, but the Macho MVP with a cage, I
Yep.
started using that in mid '90s or early '90s. I introduced it to Egan Inoue, who then introduced his brother Ensign. So they're at my place in Hermosa Beach and had the helmets, and they're sparring, and we're sparring and all that. So as good as those helmets are, one time I'm sparring at Egan's place here in Hawaii, and I'm probably about almost 40, and he has a bunch of guys coming in. They're MMA basically, uh, gym, and so here are these. Well, I don't know, at least 220 pounds. I was probably 180, and they're 22 years old or so. And he goes, "Okay, put the helmets on. One person down, so I go down on my back. Okay, you start mount position." Right. So the guy's starting mount position, sitting up and ready, go. And he just blast full out, all out, full power. So you're trying to defend, you're trying to get him forward so you can get a hold of him to muffle the punches while you're trying to escape at the same time. And, so that was a day that I definitely got a concussion, because
Yeah.
I had the dizziness later and the headaches and all that sort of thing. And that's not good for you, right? Because I mean, it was good training. You understand, makes you understand things, but that's not something we want to do every day. So, like for example, Egan went away from that, of course, as well.
Right.
But I would just imagine that it was just too rigorous. It's just that is really, really, really tough on your body, and I think also if you have somebody of Bruce Lee's caliber, when he's sparring with people, the problem is someone could be good, but he's so much better. Or even if somebody just that next step beyond, well, the person who may be very good, they start losing their confidence because they're
Yeah,
getting beaten up every day by
yeah,
someone that's better.
yeah,
Yeah, like for myself, again, look at jujitsu. When I started training with Egan, there were maybe just three or four other guys. And for 2 year or year and a half, at least a year and a half, we'll say, at least a year and a half, I never got one submission on anybody. So imagine rolling for a year and a half and never getting a submission, getting submitted all the time. My confidence was like this on the
mhm,
ground until I went and trained with some people outside that group. Like, oh, I can submit people. How about that? Because they were just ahead of me. And as I got better, they were getting better too. So,
yeah,
but yeah, interesting how he went really hard at first and then later just went to that surface contact, where if you have that control, if both people respect the punches, then like somebody gets me with a surface punch and I don't go, oh good, I'm now close enough to blast them, because they it would have actually moved me,
yeah.
right? It was altered my, it would have been an interception. So
So do you think that he may have, I'll call it, overreacted because in the 60s there was the idea of the no contact sparring, which he might have found unrealistic. So
yes,
now we have this opportunity to make contact. But since he was essentially self guided, so that's my theory that he overreacted and he didn't go from no contact through the ranges to full contact. He just went to full contact.
we're fighting. Yeah, he wasn't sparring, he was fighting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah,
so
I
so it's
agree.
interesting. It's interesting because you have used the word play about 5 times in the 42 minutes that we've been talking. Right now,
Yes.
we were at Cass's knife seminar last weekend. And in the opening of the seminar, Cass says, the principles will give you the techniques because it's not a style.
Mm, mm.
And I'm thinking, Cass, don't you realize that this is a knife seminar? It's not a Jeet Kune seminar. You're not supposed to say that. So I have to chide you also because you're talking about play, which is one of the points of the Filipino triangle of knowledge.
That's right.
You see, so
Laban
I have
Laro,
I have
right?
to
Fight and play.
right. I have to chide you for that because this is the Jeet Kune dialogues. This is not the Jeet
Oh,
Kune Kali dialogues.
oh, I'm sorry. My mistake. Yeah.
I
Because,
know, right?
those, it's true that, the warriors in the Philippines, they never figured out that if, if, if you actually take your live blades and you do your sparring with live blades, somebody gets cut. So, yeah, they never
Yeah,
figured that out, right?
yeah, yeah. No, and and Ted Lukai, for example, is not a guy who realized that technical skill and fighting skill can be achieved through play.
Oh, no.
Neither did Edgar Sulite.
Oh no.
None of
And
those guys.
you're talking about that. You can find video of Edgar Sulite and Christopher Ricketts hand sparring, like hand, I think hand and leg, right? They're playing, but in a safe manner and full speed, like
Hmm.
full speed. It's amazing to watch.
Hmm.
But you play the game, but you use a soft stick instead. And
Yeah.
it was Christopher Ricketts who got a helmet, padded stick, and hand protection, took it to Antonio Tatang Illustrissimo and said, hey, now Illustrissimo is a guy who he had cut down a lot of people with his blade. Many, many, many people. He was so confident he actually did prize fights, sword against sword, no armor. Okay.
Hmm.
All right. He had two of those. One, the guy just left after he saw him moving, and the second one, the guy he cut the guy's thumb off at the very beginning of the match, and the guy dropped his, So,
Yeah.
the point being that Christopher Ricketts took that to Illustrissimo, and oh wait, this is JKD dialogues. We can't talk about Kali, can we?
I know,
But
right?
so
Damn.
but the sparring is you can see it on YouTube. I have a Kali Silvestrissimo program where I break all that sparring down. But what they did is when they sparred, and Tatang, who had fought with sword against sword, was like, I don't need a helmet, right? I don't need a glove. But you watch the tactics he's using that are so ingrained, his feinting, his movement, his attack by drawing, his progressive indirect attacks,
Yeah.
all these things. I mean, it's just beautiful to watch. You know, for those in original JKD that, or, you know, have that kind of bend, I have a lot of friends, right? In original JKD, and I really appreciate because I've learned a lot from them. They brought up a lot of things that I wasn't aware of, or perhaps like say for Richard Torres, the history has the history down so well. Um, but a lot of times people look at Colin like, why would you do that? Why would you do? We're doing empty hand fighting. Why would you waste your time using a stick? When are you going to use a stick for real? Well, JKD is what? It's fencing, right? Fencing. Bruce Lee said, sword fighting without a sword,
Hmm.
right? So many of the principles you do this weaponry art, you play the game with the weapons, and you understand the tactics so much better.
Yeah.
And I believe it's because you take fencing, you're here, foil fencing is you just thrust to the torso. That's all, right? Epee, which Bruce Lee's brother was a champion in, it's to the torso. You also get to go to the arm and to the leg. So you have all these targets, but you know what's coming. There's no slashing. You know it's a thrust. And because the attack, in a way, it's so simplified, it's so isolated, you must get good at tactics to beat someone else. You can't just go, right. You
Hmm.
have to fake, disengage, double disengage, beat, come in, parry, riposte. All of these tactics, you're using your footwork, you're using your broken rhythm with
Right.
your footwork. That translates directly into JKD. And if you can isolate it in weaponry sparring, and if you don't want to do foils or stick and all, just do knife sparring. And knife sparring will enhance your footwork and your sense of distance and the tactics. So uh, I don't know. I
Yeah.
think I'm going to keep doing that weaponry stuff.
Yeah. I think it'll benefit you. All right.
We'll
Yeah.
see. We'll see.
Yeah. Okay. I wanted you to talk about, because I don't know if people are aware of your latest literary venture. So, can you talk about this?
Yes. Okay. Thank you. You know, these books, I think I don't know if people know. I mean, you make no money off the books, right? I mean, it's very, 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 very little because a book takes so much to produce and print and all that. So the publisher has all these huge expenses. Da, 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 da. So, but I put it out because I want, you know, hopefully I can help. So many people help me, Guru Dan, so many instructors, so many instructors, and so back when I had my column Burt offerings in Inside Kung Fu for at least 10 years, I took articles from there and the columns plus articles from Inside Kung Fu and from Budo International in Europe and all these, a bunch of different articles and things. And I compiled them and I re-edited everything too. I read through everything, re-edited to make sure there wasn't anything that was going to be confusing because of time and this and that. And I put it out and, you know, I'm very pleased to hear that,
Yeah.
um, you know, a lot of people have given me a lot of good feedback. Just yesterday, I'm talking with a fellow who is a top dog trainer, like top level dog trainer. He's actually here in Hawaii just for a week or so training. Anyway, the point being, he said, I was reading the beginning of your book and he started relating it to his dog training and how it relates to his dog training. And he was really excited about it. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
this,
Yeah.
so that's the kind of thing. Hopefully can help people have a little different view on the same thing we're all
Yeah.
trying to improve in.
Now, let's not gloss over what you said. So, you went back to your writings from a different era
Yes.
and edited. Is that evidence of, I don't know, evolution of thought, maybe, and your
Yes.
ability to express yourself?
Absolutely. I think better understanding through all the research and development. For
Right.
example, there were a couple columns that I could have put in, but I think this is just not right. What I wrote here, I thought was correct at that time, but
Yes.
clearly I was. I don't believe that anymore, so I'm not going to put that in.
Right.
I had a bunch of references to a particular person in there, and I just took it out because, Dwight Woods, who needs to hear more about Dwight Woods?
I know,
So I
really.
just deleted all those references to Dwight Woods. Hey,
Yep.
people listening, yeah, Seafood Dwight and I go back so far, and you feel the personality. If you haven't met him, his personality, this is just who he is since day one. Just enthusiastic about learning, friendly, helpful, generous. I mean, what a great representative. Thank you for doing everything you do for the
Thank you.
JKD and the Collie and
I appreciate that.
Grudan. No, it's
Yeah.
awesome. It's
Yeah.
really awesome.
I, you know, because we are going to have to deal with it, hopefully not for a very long time, but Sifu Dan's going to be gone at some point.
This is true.
He's going to be gone at some point. And so part of my mission, if it's such a thing, is to just make sure that people of the Inosano lineage,
Mm,
that people know they're out there and they
yes.
know where they can go if they
Mm,
feel like they have to go somewhere, so that there's a continuation. It's just
mm,
like it's just like he says in this book,
mm,
where what why did he give people permission to teach? It was because he wanted there to be a continuation on the path that Bruce Lee had blazed. Well, I'm trying to. I mean, but it's not even something that I did consciously, but
yes.
I realized along the way. Oh wait, I can use the podcast to let people know there are people out there that you should definitely check out. You know what I
See, that's
mean?
just who you are too. You are just a good person who's not. You're not like, oh, what can I do for myself? You, like, hey, what can I do for the community? How can I make this
Yeah,
go on? I
yeah,
want to mention something on a side there. You're talking about Grudan and about bringing things along. Um, we were talking one time about that whole idea that he doesn't actually certify people in Jeet Kune Do because he promised Bruce Lee at some point that he wouldn't, and Grudan keeps his promises.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
he was called to be the fight choreographer way back when on Conan the Barbarian with Arnold Schwarzenegger, which ended up being a huge hit. They wanted him to do the sword fight choreography. He turned it down because somewhere within that big time frame, he had promised that he was going to do a seminar for somebody, and he couldn't call the person and say, "Oh, I can't do it. I've got this big Hollywood thing happening." He keeps his word. So he tells me, he goes, "Yes, I promised Bruce that I would not make any actual JKD instructors." Then he
Hmm.
looks at me, he goes, "But you didn't promise him." So
Yeah,
yeah, no, clearly giving permission for us to
yeah,
do what we think is best to propagate the art and keep it
right.
alive and keep it current, right?
Hmm.
Make sure it's something that actually can be used, which is my whole point in the Junfan JKD for the street or the Junfan JKD program is, hey, you should be able to take your Junfan JKD, go into an MMA gym, spar with the guys, and use it, and actually have tactics they're not even aware of because a lot of this there are a lot of things that are used in MMA now that are from Bruce Lee and JKD that don't really get the credit, like the oblique kick and the
Yeah,
the trapping starting to happen and all these different things. But there's a lot more that needs to be developed. But the point being, so uh, it's current,
yeah.
so everybody can use it.
So why is that? Why is there not more credit given to Jeet Kune Do in the MMA world? Because invariably, you interview an MMA person, right? And you could go to the top, literally to the top. If you and I'm not even talking the top fighter wise. Talk to Dana White.
Right,
One of the Who's his biggest influence? Bruce Lee,
Bruce Lee,
right? It's his
father,
big,
yeah,
yeah,
he's
it's
a
his
grandfather in MMA, right? That's what he
biggest
says, and
influence, right? Um, so how come? So let's start to wrap this up. Two things. How come there's not more credit given to JKD in the MMA world? And then I wanna talk to you about the trapping a little bit.
I think personally, I think the reason it's not given so much credit is not the fighters, it's not the coaches, it's not like say Dana White. I think it's actually the people that do most of the talking, which are um, the commentators, and the commentators don't know about JKD so much. For example, I remember there was as much as I appreciate Joe Rogan's commentary in the UFC and his knowledge of the sport. Someone put he was interviewing somebody and they talked about Bruce Lee and they put a little bit of Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris and Joe Rogan was so surprised. Oh man, look, he just did an oblique kick. Oh wow. Oh, look how he's moving. He was really surprised that he was recognizing some of the moves, not even knowing that, well, the reason it's called an oblique kick is because Bruce Lee called it an oblique kick, right?
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, I did
Well,
want to show you a little something, if you don't mind,
yeah,
here,
sure.
everybody. So this is at the, whoa, that's not it. Let me try that again. This is the other,
Yeah.
recently with Guru Dan, right? I posted that thing. But speaking of oblique kick, I just want you to see, look at this. That's an 88-year-old man throwing an oblique kick right there, right? It's,
Nice.
I mean, he is, uh, you know,
Yeah.
not to mention all of this, right? But what a role model! What a
Yeah.
role model!
Oh man, when I was at instructor conference a couple of months ago, like my arm is still out of commission.
Oh,
It's a lot better now, but so I'm there, and there's 60 people there, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna take notes. So then I'm
mm.
standing around, and I'm like, Dwight, you're not contributing. So I went and I drummed with him,
Oh,
right?
wow!
Yeah,
How
I
great!
went and I drummed with him. And that was the first day. The second day, something happened. He went to the bathroom. He comes out of the bathroom. He goes, okay, I need you to drum for 3 minutes. Right? I'm like, no problem. So I'm playing by myself. 3 minutes go by. 6 minutes go by. 9 minutes go by. 12 minutes go. 15 minutes later, he shows up, right? But oh man, I had such a good time. Okay, all right. So I want to be respectful of your time,
Thank
but
you.
I want to do this.
Yes.
Let's make sure. Okay.
Oh, did I lose you?
No, you didn't
Oh,
see that video, did you?
I did not.
Okay, all right. So I'll
What
tell you
was
what
that?
it was. It's the video that you put up recently of
Of the
the boxer in the right lead. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
Lansao.
All right. So now you refer to that as like functional trapping or what have you. But
Yes.
I have friends who looked at it and they go, "Well, I don't think that's trapping at all." They said what happened is that the guy missed the right hook, and because his punch didn't snap back, it fell down, blocked the other guy's hand, and created the opening for him.
Yes.
So, I mean, different
I
people will
disagree.
see.
I
Okay,
disagree
right?
100%. He
Yeah,
was at the distance. That guy is so skillful. He's not going to miss a hook and it kind of falls down. He got the angle. He hooked it over, popped, and the guy's hands just went just down just enough
yeah.
before they got up, he nailed him. That was
Okay.
a practiced. That's you don't do that by accident. That
Yeah.
was beautiful. The footwork involved, the angle
Right.
he had. I mean, that was amazing. And we've seen in MMA, Usman did this fake jab, came up with a hook, trapped the rear hand and threw across and KO'd
Right.
Masvidal, who'd never been KO'd. But this is both hands. He went over both the hands. So unmatched leads, both, which is what we practice that in my
Hmm.
trapping program. I actually mentioned, what's the beautiful thing about how we can edit now. I'm going to add a little section to my trapping program explaining
Ah.
that particular thing. Because in the
Yeah.
trapping program, I said, sometimes you're in the clinch and you can drop down, trap both hands with that lansao and punch a couple times. Some people will call it like a gum sow, right? But whatever it is, you trap both
Whatever. Yeah.
arms and you punch, and they're going to get out of it pretty quickly.
Right.
But I didn't have an actual example of somebody from distance. And again, unmatched leads, right? Pop in that thing was, gosh, just beautiful.
Do
Beautiful.
do those guys call it trapping? Do they know that there are people out there who refer to it as trapping? And how did it work its way into what these guys are doing?
That's what I want to know. I actually, like for example, the Usman, I'm, I have a friend that lives near his coach, and I'm hoping he's trying to. And I gave him instructions, please, if you ever can go to that gym, if you get to talk to the coach, which is probably going to be difficult, if you could just ask him, where did you come up with that, or where did you find that particular
Yeah.
move?
Huh.
But I'll tell you one thing in bare knuckle boxing, somebody sent me a uh, a clip of somebody using a beautiful trap, the unmatched leads, trapping the lead hand at the wrist and firing and knocking somebody down. It might have been a knockout, but he just crushed him. And the person sent it to me, and I said, "Oh man, that is great! Thank you for sending it." I said, "We actually cover that in the trapping program." I happened to mention that, but it's such a good move. And
Yeah.
he says, "Oh, I know, because I sent that to the guy's coach before that fight."
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
All
So,
right.
things are
So
getting out there.
okay, let's end on this note then. So Pinchoi Paksao Guachoy,
Yes.
Lopsao Guachoy,
Mm-hmm.
Loi Pak Chunchoy. What
Mm-hmm.
went wrong? Because that's the stuff that's being criticized now as being non-functional.
Mm-hmm.
But
I
that
think,
was the thing that characterized JKD for a long time.
yes.
What
Because
happened
I
there?
I think again, Bruce Lee talks about simple traps. And for example, we see that classic picture of Bruce Lee where he's this kind of stance. His lead hand is down, rear hand is up. And
Hmm.
you know why he did that? Why would he fight with his lead hand down? Yeah, it takes away the pak sao, takes away the lop sao. That's he actually writes about that in, I think it's in commentary on the Marshall Way, how dropping
Hmm.
that lead hand, now the person doesn't have that pox out. So, but the point being that he also talks about
Right.
simple traps, bomb, right? That's simple, quick trap. Those are just because of the time factor and the fact that the other person's moving is probably, we assume that they are punching back. It's much easier to do. When we go pox out, and then try to do a lopsao and then a guachui. That means the person was standing there for a very long time in sparring terms or fighting terms without
Right.
trying to hit you,
Right.
and they're not moving away and all.
Right.
But that said, I have done paksao, lopsao, and double paksaos in boxing gym, Palolo boxing gym, doing full sparring, and the way I ended up doing it was, and again, it's not consistent. What you have to do is get the person defensive, right? Because if you're going
Yes.
pop, pop, it's
Yes.
because they're sort of standing here. So you have to have enough pressure on them that they get into defense mode.
Right.
And it was interesting to me because I was able to go, I'm in here and I go, pock, pock, right? I was able to go pox out and pox out because the guy had a good pock, parry. So if
Hmm.
you pox out and the punch comes and I parry, I am open for this because he wasn't over pairing, right? He
Right.
was just holding
Right.
center line like a good
Yeah.
boxer. And actually, that made it easier to go 1, 2 if you're really committed to doing it. Okay. So then I'm like, next time I sparred, I'm like, I'm going to try to get pox out, lops out today. I'm going to try. I might get blasted trying to do this, but I'm going to keep trying and see if I can figure this out, how I can do it. And I'm not saying I'm the one that figured it out. It's just for me, right? And so I could not get the pox out, lops out. I just couldn't get it. And so reviewing the video, and actually as this extra a few sessions over some time, I
Yeah.
realized I just wasn't getting, what do we always do? Pox out. If they cross center line, then you can lops out, right? And he was, he's a good boxer, so he's going like this.
Right. Right.
And so what I do next time I went in and instead of pock and punch, I did a back fist. I went hit hard. So if he just pairs, it actually goes through it. So guess what? He started pairing harder, and I went. back fist, and I popped, and then I lopped right into it. And so under this conditions where someone's you've made them defensive,
Right.
it is definitely a possibility. Now, that's not to say maybe you go here and they overparry, you just punch through and you go right into your straight blast. Maybe that's better than, angle off and go into boxing. But it's definitely possible. But you got to spend the time in there to be comfortable in the
I,
sparring so you can think clearly.
I don't know, Burt Richardson. Sounds to me like if you analyzed and researched and developed that damn trapping stuff.
Well, I'm brainwashed, right? I can only see one way. There is only one way to do anything.
All right.
Uh,
On that note, my friend, thank you very much for spending this time with me. I know you got stuff to do, so
Thank you so much. And again, thank you for all you do for the JKD world and for the Kali world, for the martial arts world in general. And just by leading such a good example, we really appreciate you.
thank you, thank you. Give my regards to everybody,
All
right?
right. I
And
sure
okay,
will.
and we'll do
Thank
this again.
you.
All right, take care, my friend.
Bye. Thank you.
All right, so that was episode 330 of the Jeet Kune Dialogues. So you guys know the deal. I'll go through the comments. I'm sure Bert will too, and anything that we need to answer, we'll go ahead and do that. I got to run some errands immediately when I get off here, so I might not get back to it until tomorrow. But better late than never. So, any questions or comments you have, go ahead and put them in, and feel free to share this, like and comment, ask questions again. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods, on Instagram at Dwight D Woods, at paypal.me/unified MA Miami, paypal.me/unified MA Miami. The Jeet Kune Journey Volume 1 is available. That's paypal.me/unified MA Miami. If you have not yet, please go to JKD Drills over on Facebook, like and become a follower there, so that when that program is up and running, you'll be among the first to be notified. You can become a paid subscriber of the Jeet Kune Dialogues YouTube channel. Just click on the join link and you'll see the different levels of membership that are available to you there. But of course, the best thing you can do, as always, is to share this video and spread the word about the Jeet Kune Dialogues. Okay. Um, the three Miami JKD Musketeers are on the road again next Friday. But I'm working on doing a thing. We will be with my good friend G. Anthony Joseph in the TCF Red Gym. So we might shoot something from there again. I got to see if I can put that together. If not, we'll be back in business the following Friday. But I will see you next Wednesday for the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast. Got some good stuff coming up for you in the next few issues. And I got some good people coming up on the dialogues as well. All right. So until then, next episode, this is Dwight Woods, the Jeet Kune Rebel, signing off. Guys, enjoy your weekend, and we will talk soon. Take care.